Hi, I'm Dr. Megan Monday, and today I want to talk to you about abandonment issues. So, I just went through a day of therapy today, and that kind of seemed to be the consensus. Some clients were dealing with grief or loss related to death of a loved one, some were dealing with breakups, some were dealing with relationship endings and loss in general. And so, when we experience a breakup or an abandonment of some sort, it's really easy to feel like it's your fault. And I just want to kind of talk with you all about how to have good self-esteem through a time like that. So a lot of times when people are hyper responsible, they will take on all the blame for the relationship. And sometimes it's the other person's fault, really. And so one of the things that's really helped me throughout the years is it's not rejection, it's protection. And so a lot of times why relationships end is because sometimes one person is abusive and the other person wants to have good boundaries. And so sometimes ending destructive relationships is one of the best things you can do for treatment. So what do we do when we have our heart broken, when we feel like we're alone, when we feel like bad things always happen to us? How do we kind of turn the mind and find a healthier place of being? I always tell my clients, if you can master being alone and be able to self-soothe, that is the ticket to true freedom. So we all seek comfort and belonging in relationships. We're wired that way. That's a really necessary part of who we are. And yet some of us use relationships like drugs to feel like we can't be okay without a certain relationship in our life. So it's really important to develop that self-reliance and to be okay with yourself. And in fact, to be better than okay, to really be able to enjoy time with yourself, do self-care, have a sense of connection with yourself, because it's out of that connection that we form all other connections with people. So if we bring a desperate kind of chasing energy to relationships, they'll always kind of stay right out of grasp. And so it's important to figure out how to be okay on your own and then enjoy it in those moments of togetherness. So, what to do when you're feeling an abandonment trigger? The thing that I notice with clients with abandonment issues, particularly if they've had a devastating loss or several devastating losses, is that they expect abandonment. So it's not a question of if they're going to get abandoned, but when. And so what this leads to is kind of a back and forth energy, like a real push-pull sort of sensation when it comes to relationships, even kind of a testing and sometimes even sabotage in relationships. One of the classic books for borderline personality disorder, which I've worked with quite a bit, is I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. And that kind of explains the dialectic of needing someone so much, but then being furious with them for having that kind of power over you, wanting to end the relationship, but then also being addicted to the relationship. And so that push-pull really is a great sort of one-liner to describe what abandonment issues are. The other big book for borderline is Stop Walking on Eggshells, and this is kind of more of a family perspective for people who are in relationship with people with borderline, but this can, anybody can relate to the feeling of walking on eggshells. And so a lot of times we do peacekeeping in relationships, and we may actually kind of be blocking ourselves from getting our needs met and feel kind of unfulfilled in relationships because we've been walking on eggshells. So it's kind of important to pause. If you are one of those people who has abandonment triggers, what happens when we get one of those triggers is that we're an emotional mind. And so a lot of times we just set fire to the relationship because we're acting out of a place of that emotional volatility. And so what we need to do instead is take a moment to pause, stop, take a moment, do opposite action. Really just don't act out emotionally. One of the sort of analogies that we would use in IOP a lot was a bar of soap. If I was prepared, I'd have one, but pretend there's a bar of soap in my hand. What we talk about is when we try to grasp a relationship, what happens to the bar of soap? It flies away, right? But when we have an open or willing hands approach to relationships, when we can let the relationship be, when we can give over control and just have freedom in the relationship, that's when we have more peaceful, stable relationships. And so when you're encountering abandonment triggers, just know that that's automatically going to be a trigger for emotional mind. And so what you're going to have to do in those crisis moments, it's going to feel urgent. But what you want to do is wait. Wise mind waits. You want to self-soothe. If there's really nothing you can do about it, you want to distract. We used to make self-soothe kits. So, having a kit ready, something, maybe some oils, some gum, a game, things that kind of engage your five senses are awesome opportunities to ground and self-soothe and distract. The main skill, I think, when we're dealing with relationships, particularly abandonment triggers, is radical acceptance. And so that is that kind of open-palmed approach to be able to accept the relationships as they are. Doesn't mean that you're not going to want to make changes if there need to be healthy boundaries or whatnot, but really just appreciating in the moment what's happening. Even if you don't like it, still leaning in, embracing, being willing in relationships. So I hope you enjoyed this little DBT primer on how to handle interpersonal abandonment triggers, and I hope that this will help you be able to get your needs met in relationships. If you'd like more therapy nuggets, blogs, shopping, check out my website, rightonbrain.com. Thank you and have a great day.